Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully the website is fun and exciting and everyone's enjoying themselves. This is a presentation that Christian has shown us internally, which was absolutely fantastic. And we really, really adored it. And we thought it would be a great chance to share it with the students because it's just a really, maybe a less traditional way of looking at a problem. And it's just a really exciting way of understanding what's going on and getting involved about issues that concern us, but that sometimes we feel a little bit confused about how we can even start to think about the problems. So he explores that through this project, which is about citizens' relationship with the Heathrow extension. So the extension of an additional, I think, runway. Christian will know better than all of us, and he'll talk about his research about it. So please.
Thanks a lot, and yeah, thanks for inviting me to have a chat. Yeah, I'm really happy. I worked around Heathrow for about 10 years, so I always love talking about it. So if you want to know anything more, there's an endless depth of slightly tedious knowledge, but hopefully I can say something interesting about it. So Heathrow Airport in London. I suspect some of you have flown from there, but I bet many of you don't really know the area around it immediately. When we think about Heathrow Airport as a designer, most of the time, the way you might approach it is by kind of going to sort of like the control tower, which is just here. And this is the kind of control tower view of the Heathrow Airport. And this is how you might think about Heathrow Airport and designing for it. It's about planes, it's about logistics, about getting bags and people around and moving them safely to different places. And that's a particular way of thinking about design. And I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the other aspects of Heathrow Airport. So as Max mentioned, there have been plans for a third runway at Heathrow Airport for a long time. It would be where that red blob is at the top there. So there's actually a village there in the moment, which would have to be demolished to actually put that third runway there. And it would cause a lot more extra flights and extra noise and air pollution, and there's quite a campaign about this, really. So here you see there's a mass amount of people standing there holding up no signs shaped inside a no. So this is actually what I think of as a material public. In a sense, these are people who are really affected and come together because of Heathrow Airport and the planes and the noise. So this is a kind of material public that's kind of formed really around the airport in many ways. And I think we're seeing this more and more, where people are really organizing themselves around particular issues of concern. And I guess I wanted to suggest that maybe as designers, that another way of designing is not by going to the control tower, but for example, going to that little cricket hut, which is where that little yellow arrow is pointing to. And these are the people who you find inside the cricket hut. These are actually some of the experts on Heathrow Airport. These are some of the members of residents associations, but they're also pressure group people, but people who've also been researching this topic for a long time. And what's interesting is what they talk about are these kind of contour lines. These are noise contour lines. So you see the two lines in the middle, which is the noise propagating outside from the two runways. But actually these were really based on social surveys where they asked people how annoyed they were. So these things, these contour lines are actually considered to be very unreliable and actually just an easy way of dealing with noise. So the decision on the third runway expansion is all based on these noise contours, i.e. how many people live within these particular boundaries. So when we were starting to do a project there, this is really what local residents were interested in, is enabling real people to record real noise, not what Heathrow or what anybody else says it is. Real people record real noise and put it on the map. And I really love that kind of repetition of the real and the way that kind of combines real people and real noise. So there was something about the sort of distrust of these particular noise contours, which are like the official way of talking about noise. So there was a real space for a new design initiative to think about, how do you combine allowing real people to do real noise or do it differently in a way that these contours do. So the workshops I was doing were really working with the sort of people you saw in that room, but also a range of other people in small workshops where I produced these small prototype devices that were designed not necessarily as a solution, but as a provocation to really think more about the problematic of noise and this huge, complicated thing of Heathrow Airport. So this particular device, it measures the sound level, but instead of giving you a number, which would lead towards those contours, it actually speaks on behalf of people. So it's kind of, when it's very quiet, it, you know, says calm, relaxed. And then as a plane flies over, it changes to painful. So this little device, in the sense, it's kind of doing the same thing as the contours. It's speaking on behalf of the local residents. And of course, during the workshop, this annoyed some of the people in the workshop. It's a provocation to really get them to think about that, the contour lines. And actually, what this particular device did, it actually, it came up with a whole range of different suggestions from the group on how these contour lines could be improved. You know, people were talking about testing their stress level. People were talking about other ways of measuring the effect this was having on local residents, and other ways of coming up with metrics. So this was actually very useful, of really going beyond the sort of, like, you know, the contour is reality, but we need some different ways of doing things. This was another little prototype that was designed to go outside people's houses. So if the plane would fly over, it would suddenly light up outside houses. And it would be a public display of this stuff. And what was interesting is that people did not want to have it on their own house because they were worried about house prices and being seen as kind of activists and being seen as difficult. But they really liked the idea of this being on public buildings. But then it was interesting that people started saying, well, actually, my school would not accept it because they actually get money from the airport. So this little prototype, it opened up some of the real dynamics, some of the real problematics of how you get to, you know, organize with your neighbors, with the people around you. You don't want to be seen as a troublemaker. And actually, if you walk through the immediate area around Heathrow, it just looks like everywhere else. You don't see any external displays of the noise and the air pollution issue. So that's what this little prototype really triggered, this discussion. Well, this particular one, whenever a plane was flying over, it was basically measuring the noise level, and then it would send a text message to my mobile phone. So it would, every time a plane would fly over, it would go beep, 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 beep. But then I showed the people in the workshop the source code and said, hey, you could put somebody else's mobile phone number in there. And people suddenly started getting very excited, like whose mobile phone number should be put in there? You know, who should be getting a text message every single time a plane flies over? And they were talking about, is it Boris Johnson? Is it somebody else? Is it the head of the airport? And actually, it really divided the group, where half the people thought, you know, this was really much too confrontational, and other people wanted to go further. They wanted to set up noise protests at 4 o'clock in the morning. And it really, it allowed the group to kind of take positions and think about the impact of some kind of organization around noise could have. So these were people who are not like the long-term campaigners that I showed you at the beginning, but these were local residents that had been living there for a long time, but had never been energized to do anything about it. There was no consensus around this device, but actually it was just a way of provoking that kind of discussion. You know, were they activists? I mean, the actual conclusion was they were not activists. What they were much more keen on was this particular device, which was basically measuring the noise level and then sending it to a server to be visualized as a graph. And this is the one that I had some people really immediately wanted to put in their houses. And this started off me, actually, the final design of this was this thing, which uses a calibrated measurement microphone, and it does it much better. So what you do is you get these very particular noise spikes. The one at the top there, that's a particular out-of-hour flight, and you could really track it together with particular aircraft. So the particular resident where I installed this device in Windsor, he was using this to make particular complaints about specific flights that he could identify using this device. And you could also look at a whole year worth of noise, basically. And suddenly the residents had long-term noise data in a way that, you know, they never had beforehand. So in some ways they had their real noise data that they could use for having their own data set for making arguments that counteracted the way the airport were talking about, that the airport was getting quieter. They could demonstrate, you know, with their 14 million data points, that at least at this house, it wasn't getting any quieter. And at the same time, this little device that I built, it was also doing a radio stream, so you could listen to this. So you could listen to the aircraft from different people's gardens. You could hear the same aircraft from multiple people's gardens. You could really listen to and hear what it sounded like, and you could hear how the birds were disturbed when the planes were flying over. You could really get a sense of what it felt like to be under the flight path. So this was an public art exhibition and really brought a completely different audience into the project and to think about aircraft noise. So the real thing that I wanted to kind of suggest with this whole thing is that design has direct impacts on people's lives. I mean, in some ways we know that, but we sometimes know that in a slightly abstract way. You know, maybe in this example, you can see how particular ways of designing those kind of noise contours or deciding whether the third runway gets built or particular ways of intervening in a process on this, you know, has a real impact on people's lives. I worked with a lot of people who had mental health problems as a result of living under the flight path. So the real question I wanted to ask you is, you know, how can we design around public concerns, not just for individual consumers? And I think we've actually seen some examples already from the projects I've looked at. So yeah, I wondered if you have any examples or stories you'd like to share with others from that way of approaching, which isn't just about, you know, targeting a consumer. And that was my talk. Thank you. And I'll get rid of my share. There you go. So yeah, I mean, you might have some immediate questions, but yeah, I was hoping that you know, people might just have some thoughts to have a chat amongst each other about their projects. You know, if it triggers something in the way you think about the people who you design for or who you'd like to design for.
I really like the idea of putting people in charge of getting their own information. It changes the power balance where they're not relying on evidence from authorities, and they can produce some of their own. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, I worked in something called the Extreme Citizen Science Group, and I think there's a really interesting space to think about designers working together with sort of scientists. I mean, packaged as extreme citizen science or whatever, or citizen science, where people can produce data sets and really create evidence. So yeah, no, I think it's really exciting. I mean, oh yeah, Derek, so you've got your hand up, I see.
Yeah, thanks, Christian. And that was really interesting. I mean, we've been working together for months now, and it's just really interesting to actually hear a longer sort of sentence about what you've been looking at. It made me think, just before I left architectural practice, we were starting to move into spaces of generally trying to understand user stories along longer experiences with the healthcare system. So, for example, when you design a hospital, I'm sorry if anybody's heard this example before, but your experience of a hospital starts long before you even enter the hospital. It's the experience of getting there and all this kind of stuff. And we did start to build up almost like, if you like, types of patient and so on and so forth. But what strikes me, Christian, is that even in that approach, you're still in the control tower, if you see what I mean. And I'm wondering, just from what you were saying, it's not just about, you know, giving data to people. It's actually, how do you then construct something with that data? How do you make something visible that wasn't visible before? How do you find the interesting things and not just maybe get lost in the noise of data? I guess you might have some examples of how that was discovered. Maybe it is just a case of playing, of experimenting, of trying these things out. I loved your examples of, you know, what happens if we do put a prototype in a building and then suddenly a whole bunch of other things emerge from this. I guess maybe there's a whole bunch of tools, methods, approaches, but it's making me wonder about the healthcare thing in particular, that decentering that, looking at other ways of doing it, other methods, other ways of thinking about publics, to use the technical term, it seems quite interesting. I think there's something to be had there. Sorry, it's a bit of a
no, thank you. Yeah. I mean, maybe just to come back is, you know, what it opened up for me is that a lot of sort of unusual audiences that I wouldn't have thought of appeared as a result of this. For example, I met whole organizations of local councils, for example, that worked together as a result of this, who really wanted me to produce various kind of other maps for them. You know, you don't normally think of councils as being kind of people who commission kind of designers to do projects like this, like designing for councils is quite interesting. And a whole bunch of app designers came out of this. So, you know, maybe one of the things of that sort of approach is that you find there's a lot of other stakeholders and other people involved with something like an airport that you just don't think about normally, that need design in different ways. You know, it really expands the kind of the place of design in many ways. I see there's a few comments.
There's one interesting one in the chat from Louise. Louise, do you want to share yourself what the idea you had?
Okay, sorry. Let me see if I can put myself back on the video. So I just added that when people put a message on social media, it can have an almost infinite response in that can make somebody's day so sad, and that can echo and echo and echo. And actually, there's no way of recording actually the negative impacts across all of us on social media. And I think for my generation and above is fine. We're kind of okay. We kind of control it. We're kind of managing it. But the young people of today, it's so intrusively powerful that actually I don't really understand how much that's affecting them. And actually that's something that we're not measuring, and it's so out of control that I don't think we know how to get control back. So that was why I did that.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Derek, I think, put in the Wheelfield Fine project. Yeah, there's lots of people who are trying to think about global happiness and different ways of measuring it in different ways. There was even a sort of a semi-governmental approach of trying to do it in real time, a happiness index, or Bhutan is supposed to be the happiest country in the world. So it's interesting how these things are sometimes, you know, like there's a whole scale from individual well-being and happiness all the way to institutions wanting us to be well in particular ways. And yeah, how we do that, you know, I think what's the role of designers in that? I think we have maybe slightly different ways of thinking about this, you know, like I love your idea of thinking about social media in a sort of embodied real-time way. You know, people mostly come up with solutions that are digital. It'd be really interesting to think about how do we deal with social media in our everyday lives, you know. I'd love to, like, one of the projects we could set is like design for social media in the home. You know, how would you redesign your home based around social media? And I think you might, you know, I don't know. I can imagine some quite interesting solutions, maybe some places where you'd never go to check Twitter, or places where you have to go to look at the stuff. Yeah. Sorry, Nick, I think you hand us up.
I do, yeah. I find a slightly different aspect to your talk is I think that it really provokes you to think about what is design in a sense, because, you know, design is not the final product, but as you say, it's about facilitating conversation, allowing people to, you know, to see things differently, but very physically embedded, right? I mean, or in the intersection between physical and digital kind of artifacts, you know. And I think this is just future thinking quite important, you know, because we are totally over designed with things, but we don't need any more things, so to say, you know, that are just a throwaway you know, result of some kind of design process. But this really shows that design can also be a facilitator of conversations rather than the end product, so to say. So yeah, I was wondering about if you can say a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I think that's really exciting, you know, thinking of design as a process of where you may be supporting kind of community development in different way. You know, I mean, Alessandra's work, I think, really works on that. I think there's a nice term called infrastructuring. So turning infrastructure into a verb, where designers are taking the role of doing infrastructuring. You're in a sense, you're building infrastructure, but you're also infrastructuring communities. And I think that's quite an exciting term to have a look at. So if that sort of thing interests you, have a Google for infrastructuring. You'll find a few texts that try to wrestle with how do you use design to not just make kind of objects that, you know, add to the rubbish mountain, but how do you see it as kind of a long-term social social building on certain directions, and I think it's quite exciting, and it touches on lots of different directions. Yeah, I could whitter on about this, but I want to make sure that that this becomes sorry, maybe one last connection I was going to make. Design thinking. I was going to really connect it with design thinking, and I was going to say, I wonder to what extent people think design thinking has really helped them to really move away from thinking about just design as being just about objects. Maybe I wonder if design thinking has really helped. I mean, some of you have already said it just now, whether it's really opened up some new directions and you start wanting to redesign the world around you. But I wonder if that might be a way of opening up thinking beyond the object. Or maybe just, I'm curious how you use design thinking. Is there something that you talk to your family and friends about? Is it something that resonates with them, or is it just a weird kind of word that you studied?
Maybe hands up. Who's ever used the word design thinking with their family?
Oh yeah, Sarah was saying.
Yeah, so you can raise virtual hands. That's fine too. Don't worry, I don't call you up and ask you to speak up.
An iterative process of everyday actions and self-evaluation. Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
I was going to add that on that point, I've never talked to my parents about design thinking or anything that I've done with my career or anything like that. And my grandmother asked me to send her some of the work that I was working on. And she read it and then got back to me. She's like, I understood it. It's so exciting. And then she talked to me about it. I was like, Grandma, look at you. This is wonderful. It was such a fun surprise. Never would I have thought that would be a conversation I'd have with my grandma. I thought we were going to gossip about the small town people in where she lives, like her little retirement home. But no, she wanted to talk about design thinking.
Well, there you go.
Cindy had also a thought. Yeah. Do you want to say something about what you chatted? Cindy? Sorry, I don't want to call you out.
No. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
No, I was just thinking of it as design thinking from the aspect of the way that I was studying. I always kind of looked at it from a point of view as a child, trying to teach them how to reuse elements of design that we already have instead of causing and creating more, environmental issues, and just kind of teaching them from that point of view. Also using social media, also using like design collaborations, what I did when I was doing my design work. And like I said in my comment, that it caused a lot of debates and arguments, and we discussed it and it was quite fun, but it was just another aspect of looking at it from not only as me as looking as a designer, but as looking at my family as consumers and what they would think about all sorts of different things. So it was quite enlightening for me.
Yeah, it's true. You get to know your family in a different way, is it?
Yeah, and they get to see what I'm studying, and it just draws their interest, and then they get to think about things in a different way that they never considered, which on just normal consumer items or just things, news in the news, or things they use at school. Literally everything that we do in news, it was just thinking about it in a different context. I just found that interesting, regardless of what age they were. Just looking at it that I found it really impactful.
True. you'll be coming to Cindy in a moment.
Oh gosh.
Oh gosh. don't you blush. Don't worry about that.
No, I'm all right. I'm fine. I think I'll be okay. I'll be all right.
I don't know. I think we need to thank you for this very interesting, thought-provoking presentation and discussion, Christian.
Thank you. But no, carry on. I want to kind of like get to the good bit.
Yes, I do. So I'll share my screen again if that's all right. Because we had, as we do every year, we had two students that kind of co-designed the session with us. Well, actually the whole experience of the exhibition. So we had a few meetings and we distributed tasks, and I came back to Cindy because we had great discussions on the side about basically about how to engage more the staff and students, and what else we could do beyond our modules, so to say. So Cindy had so many great ideas that I asked her if she would be willing to not just be, design social media campaign with Tom together, but also maybe be in this session and facilitate a conversation with everyone to get, to understand a bit more what we can do together. So Cindy, may I invite you? I'll put my screen on presentation mode, and yeah. So Cindy is a T217 student, just finished her second level. She's been doing first level as well on the business pathway, and yeah. So over to you, Cindy.
Okay, hi everyone. Just want to say hello to all who are here this evening, and especially this I'm aiming this at my fellow students, regardless of what module or year that you are studying. Just want to say a couple of things. First of all, congratulations to the winners of the competition, Sarah, James, Thomas, Dean, and the overall winner, Louise. I think your work was fantastic, and it was great, and it was very inspiring. I can take those ideas and those thought processes into my third year, which I start in October. So I'm looking forward to that. And I also wanted to say congratulations to all the students who are here that have completed their modules and got their grades. I think we should be all patting ourselves on the back, because I'm sure we all know how hard that was to complete, but when we made it, we're in the summer, and we're in a probably a more laid back setting that we can have a little bit of a conversation and look at things from a different point of view. And I just wanted to ask a question. It was to do with facilitating students in a different way other than just working on the module. I was thinking of it, and I'll read the question out to everyone and you just have a little think, and then I'll give my perspective on it. So what I wanted to ask was, what extracurricular activities would you like to see being offered beyond just doing the design module? So my kind of take on this was a discussion I was having with Nicole, and I suggested, for instance, that as I'm going into T317, there's this emphasis on having a portfolio. And I was asking, well, okay, we're going to have a portfolio, but is there any way of being shown or facilities that how we actually go about doing so? And for just doing this for design students, so that they can use it as, a way of presenting the work for the past 3 years or how many years beyond that. What we could use that for, or how we actually create one. Is there going to be, can we do something to facilitate that beyond just having tutorials? And just day schools and stuff like that. I think this could be some extra things that we could be doing. So I'm just going to put it out to all of you as students instead of, you know, the tutors. So you've got a bit of a chance to speak up now. What do you think? Can you think of anything that we could be doing beyond just what we're doing already? I'll put it over to you.
You can type some ideas as well if you want to. Optional courses, Louise.
Oh, Louise, Nicole, would you like to read out the
I do read out, yeah. So Louise said she would like to have optional courses to understand 2D and 3D design software and how to use it. And Tram said physical activity sessions, playing games. That's cool, yeah. How about meetups and hackerspaces, says Carl. Yeah, definitely portfolio assistance to display one's work on the module and beyond, I guess. Yeah, Maxime says he likes the rig workshop. We need the rig. Do we? There are loads of ideas coming, Tommy. Yeah. Yeah, Photoshop, exactly. It's interesting. We've offered, when was it, Georgie Derrick? We offered summer school, a virtual summer school, around not necessarily one particular software, but we asked, so what would you like to learn? You know, what things? And then we just went straight into it, you know, basically a bit of kind of self-learning and critiquing what we're doing and learning together. You know, there's so many tutorials out there, but you never really take the time, do you? And I don't know, what about you, Cindy? What about you learning new softwares? How do you go about that?
Well, I think that would be a great idea. I mean, when we was doing T217, there was the opportunity while we were doing the module to learn SketchUp. Now, I would have liked to have learned that, but for various reasons, I never got the opportunity to do that because I was fortunately and unfortunately, I was doing 2 modules at once. So finding the time to be able to incorporate that, I found a little bit difficult. Of which, funnily enough, I was looking at to do a little mini course over the summer to play catch up with that. But if there was a way that I'm looking at it in a different way, when you're looking at the, you know, looking at the course material, looking it up and deciding what you want to study, if there was some kind of way to inform students of what kind of computer programs is going to be used so they can have an idea of what's coming, that might be a little bit more handy, because I didn't realize certain programs were going to be used because I'm brand new to design. So I didn't think I would need that I'm talking about on the premise of being a brand new student with, you know, no real design experience, because that's where I'm coming from. But there are people who have done design and they would probably be able to do that with their eyes shut because that's the environment that they work in. But maybe little pointers beyond just having it in the module that they can, like, reference points, because what happens is now that we finished the module, whoever's finished the module, you go back into that module now and you won't be able to access those points, those courses. So you have to look elsewhere. So if there was a way that we could put that somewhere, that we can access it beyond just doing, you know, our modules, that would be handy. And even doing that in, like, I know there's another issue that, you know, there's like day schools and stuff. I know you don't really have those kind of, you know, teaching methods within that environment, but some people would, even just a physical way of being able to see something like that would be really handy.
Okay, so there was a comment, loads of comments coming in. So there was a comment from Max saying that there's a YouTube tutorial he's done actually last year on poster design, and loads of those principles he introduced, they also translate to portfolio. For example, I remember though there was another discussion around portfolios, but I think Derek said that he knows that every industry has kind of different requirements for portfolios. So again, you know, Cindy, what you just said, if you don't know that, you know, it would be probably quite harder to land a job, you know, in a particular industry if you don't know it too well yet, you know, if you want to break in.
I think maybe that's an interesting thing though, to maybe blend the two things together though, Nicole. I mean, there's certain basics, as Max has pointed out, he's absolutely right. There's certain basics about portfolio that definitely apply to all portfolios. But maybe if we took that on and we did a bit more, maybe not just a single thing on portfolio, or maybe we make portfolio the main thing that we do inside courses, but maybe we have little workshops where we do bring inside industry experts, you know, what are, you know, 3D and visual designers looking for this season, because it literally can sometimes change from year to year. So getting a sense of what's actually live in industry might be the more interesting thing. We do maybe a core portfolio thing, but maybe we augment it with maybe getting some of our own contacts and, you know, people we know in industry, because that keeps it much more genuine, much more live, much more contemporary, if that makes sense.
Max wanted something to say,
Yeah,
I think.
the one thing I'll add with portfolio design, I think the most important thing that everyone needs to start understanding, like before you 101, is that, oh my goodness, save all of your images and have them well organized for yourself, because otherwise, oh, it's difficult.
I would have
Make sure that
I agree with that one, because the amount of images that I have taken is literally destroyed my phone. And I've had to spend some time trying to organize it. You'd be surprised how many images and prototypes and bits and pieces that you've taken. And there's little elements here and there that you know you'd like to keep, but if you got it in a jumble in your file, you're never going to find it. So yeah, I agree with that.
And just because you think that you'll remember what the title of that photo is now, I promise you, in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years, you will not remember what you titled that.
That's very true.
There was a really good comment from Andrew. I think we talked about that before, Andrew, didn't we? I think, and he's really right. As far as, Andrew, do you want to talk yourself about the student skills sharing?
Let's try. Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. I took on the course hoping that it'd be sort of more of a graphic design course, but I don't see too much graphic design aimed in it over the years. That's gonna, I see little bits and pieces, but not huge amounts of graphic design. And maybe it's we could learn some typography, if that's how you say it, various other bits that's in the graphic design area.
It's interesting. You're not the only one saying that, but yeah, it's not a graphic design course, but many think it is. Yeah, but I think there's no harm in doing, you know, as what Cindy said, you know, or others have said, you know, small kind of organize, like little summer workshops or crash courses, or you know, or even people, as Andrew Westwood said, people who have the skills, because actually some students come in, I don't know if you've met, they have amazing skills in a certain area, like Andrew in woodworking, you know, or someone else in graphic design, and there could actually be a student skill. I don't know what everyone thinks about this, you know. Do you ever go to other students and learn from them? Would you like that?
I mean, I've learned I've done CAD design in the past. I've been a CAD designer for 20 years, but I'd like to sort of go into a different area now and do something a bit more fun, like graphic design, or this is why I come into this course, to learn other things as well. I'm doing an IT course at the same time, so.
There could be like a skills sharing. So you share your cat skills and you get back some graphic design skills. A bartering economy. Cindy, what do you think about that?
No, because you could do it in a way that you could have some kind of almost like a directory of students or with specific skills that they'd like to share, or they can share knowledge on one hand, and then another, you know, directory as to different aspects of where you find these kinds of information beyond the university. So for the beginning, and if there's anything more specific that you can, the module or the faculty could expand upon themselves, then or so be it.
Yeah, I think Sham, you've got your hand up. What would you like to say?
Yeah, I would like to say that you have introduced several design elements in this module, like t-shirt design and a product design and game design and visual design. So what would be the next module I can choose it? Because I'm interested in these visual design, like, you know, graphic designs. So what would be the next module that I can choose and progress in the path that I wanted to achieve? You know, that's my question.
So you've been doing U 101, haven't you?
Yes, yeah. I have done U 101. Yes.
Yeah. In design, the natural move would be to T217, which is the Decor Design Essentials. Cindy, do you want to tell a little bit about what this module is about? Because you've just done it.
Well, that's a bit more difficult because I literally switched my brain off because I'm tired, but not really. Let me go back. Basically, you've asked the wrong person about that now. You literally have, because I just, as soon as the module was finished, I literally put the books away and shut the door. Nicole, I think it'd be best if you
That's okay. Don't worry about it. Yeah, that's so well, I think I don't know, Georgie, it's Georgie around because you know the module really well.
I was just going to say 217, there's a lot of product design examples and some architecture. However, there's a whole modeling workbook which is about developing drawing skills, and the way that the assignments are, you know, if you're someone who does want to do CAD, we use SketchUp in T217, but equally you might want to do 2D drawing to represent ideas, and so there is quite a lot of understanding about principles and about design styles as well, which I think underpin any graphics work that you do, understanding that, you know, different approaches to design styles. And even though some of the examples, or a lot of the examples, are kind of product or furniture based, those translate in also into graphic styles as well. So it's not a graphic design course, but the kind of principles that you'll learn and the opportunities that you get to kind of develop to develop your skills and bring them into the assessments that you do are definitely there. So some people, as you'll see, probably, yeah, I think there were examples in the show. Some people, for the final piece of project work, will do something which is very 3D. Other people might design a set of boards, information boards. What we see with Juan Torres' citizen science interactive board is a bit of a mix of both of those things. So the opportunities are there. We don't set out to be a graphic design. We're very much more about design thinking and kind of general design. But if you want to develop those skills, just like any student in any university would, the ideas and principles are there, and you can you can develop them and bring those into your work.
So which is a T217. That's the module you are
Yes,
talking
that's
about.
called Design Essentials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have noticed that I have registered to do design and innovation. So the options that I can choose from the BA section and BSc, but this T217 isn't there in that section, you know, BSc section that which I'm interested in.
Oh, it should. If you're registered for design and innovation, it should be one of the first. In fact, it's a compulsory. So
I think that could be it, Georgie. It won't actually appear in the pathways, Sharm, because it's actually a compulsory module if you're doing the design and innovation qualification. So it could be that.
Yes, the
Right.
U101 is the that I did for the first module. So if I wanted to proceed in the BSc level, like BSc Part, which it shows it wasn't there, T217.
Yes, 217 is very definitely U101, T217 and T317 are common to both the BA and the BSc. So it should be there. If it isn't, then you need to talk to the student support team and ask them why it isn't, because it should definitely be there on module chooser. Yeah, those are they're the sort of spine of design courses, and at the moment, as the degree stands, you choose complementary courses. So some people do business on the BA route, they'll maybe do business or social science, or if you're interested in aesthetics and things, then the art history, the culture and aesthetics pathway is a good one. But with the BSc, it's more the engineering, environment and IT are the things. So yeah.
Sharm, can I ask you, what qualification are you aiming for? What is your main qualification you're aiming for?
Design and innovation.
Design and innovation, okay.
Yeah.
The reason why I was asking that is because I can see why you're saying what you're saying, because how I ended up being on design and innovation was literally by accident, because I originally started with business management, and U101 came up as an option for that degree, which is not a design module. So it was through my second module on the business course that I found that, and then I looked up. That's how I found design and innovation, and then I had to change my degree to become design and innovation from business. So I can understand why, can see why you're saying it might not be there. That's the reason why I asked you what pathway are you going with your degree, because sometimes
that's a BSc pathway, not BA, but BSc.
Yeah. My one was a BA one, but in business management. But I changed mine, and it's still a BA, but it's now design and innovation.
Okay.
Could it be that you are that there is the other? If you're maybe on an engineering pathway, it might be you are actually there's the T218 option, and that's the kind of sister course, but that would be more the engineering, not just a pathway. I think it would be more studying design with engineering, right? So there are these two options, which is really confusing, isn't it?
If you're registered for Q61, which is the design and innovation code, it should definitely be showing, and I would just suggest talking to student support team if it isn't, because there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to choose it. So it might just be someone needs to tweak a button somewhere because they've got themselves in a twist or something. I don't know. But student support, they're really helpful, and they'll sort it out for you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Cindy, there was one very interesting, maybe as a last point to take, as we're finishing up soon. from Dean. Dean said perhaps there should be some pre-module sessions aimed at assisting you to understand what's in the next module, maybe pre-study. What do you think about that?
That was something I kind of thought about. Again, when it comes to when you're deciding what course you want to study with, it's almost like a bit of like a taster or just an idea of. So you have an idea of what the course actually entails, because as a STEM subject, I don't know if some people know that or not, it is a STEM subject which design covers basically all 4 parts of STEM in some way, shape or form. So, some people go for the engineering side, some people go for the technical side of it. So just like elements of what you do in the module would be quite kind of handy. And that's just like step ups for each year or level that you're going on towards. So as it gets progressively harder, so you have some kind of idea of what you need to do, what programs you probably need to do, and even like a little reading list of some kind of like taster of what's going to happen, so you kind of have an idea. That I think that would be quite handy. That's just my personal view of it.
If I could come back on that, if there's time.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, cool. I was sort of thinking along the lines of like, I choose my next module, I suppose, about nowish, and I sort of apply for it. And then I say to myself, oh, I'm definitely going to read all my books ready for next year and get ahead. And it never really happened. But just to sort of refresh yourself on the previous year. But yeah, it might be sort of helpful to sort of do little snippets of the year ahead. Because eventually when you're into the year, you just sort of don't really find the time for some extra things really, for SketchUp, for example. So maybe it's good. It could be student-led as well, these little sessions, just to sort of, get ahead and get a few little quick starts on things to make it a bit easier, especially towards the end of the year. That was the thinking, really.
I like especially what you said about student-led, if those who've studied already, have a very different perspective on how, how to see things, what to focus on. That would be really quite lovely if you had like maybe a package of, course materials, and then some people kind of contextualizing, what it means really, what they did. I think that would be lovely, wouldn't it, Sydney?
Yeah, it would be. I'm just noticing another question. I believe it's, I think it's Jan who's brought it up. Says, what's the best way of nurturing design student community? We have the subject website, but how well is this working as a community center? That's a good point, because another thing I was thinking about was ODS. Now we use that as a way of communicating with our actual work we're doing throughout the module, but because of what happened with the pandemic and all the extras and the non-extras, what's occurred, meaning that there's been no like formal communication or meetup or just like face-to-face meetings between students and tutors as well. Is there another way that we can use that website to communicate as like a student community, not just as not in just a work environment, just like in almost in an informal design way that we can have discussions and share our ideas and just being able to talk and just socialize really, especially after what's happened for the past couple of years. There's just been no formal communication, face-to-face communication between students and their tutors. I'm sure a few people have found that quite difficult. I mean, I have to admit that when I was doing the T217, because of the amount, I didn't have enough time, I kind of slightly fell behind because of external circumstances. I didn't get the opportunity to put my work up on ODS for various reasons. I didn't, even though it was a good resource when you doing year 101, it's brilliant and it's fun, but I think the momentum that you used, or the students who did that course came into the upper courses, that kind of dwindles a little bit because of the workload and the amount of work you have to complete. So I'm not sure what we can do about that.
Yeah, those are good thoughts. And I was wondering, has anyone an idea on how to connect more between students more informally? Because I mean, there are the forums on the study side, but they're not used. You know, it's not the right format. Maybe. Does
It's
anyone
not even
have any
that.
ideas? Twitter. Yeah.
It's not just that. Are the students even aware that that exists?
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder how many people know. Hands up or emoticon or chat. No. There is a Twitter. You do have Twitter. What is the handle? Oh, let me quickly. I'm sharing the screen, so I can't show. Can anyone who's really active on Twitter maybe share the handle for Twitter? Our Twitter handle. But it's more. Yeah, it's quite broad, is it? And you could be more active. So the forum is overwhelming. What about a Q61 WhatsApp group? Oh my word, that must be so busy. No. Instagram. We do have Instagram. Again, not used much. There's a Twitter one. What's the Instagram one? Could we? Is it possible to have an Instagram account that you can use collectively? I'm not a big Instagram user. I don't know. Does anyone know?
Yes, I use Instagram. Yeah, they used to post the important upcoming events, or they ask questions in the Instagram. So I used to answer or listen to the people who posted in that some study tips and achievements and how they overcome this when they write project works, and yeah, that's really helpful. Instagram is it's a way of
Max, can you share the Instagram handle? Yeah, exactly. I think Max is the one. So you can basically, in Instagram, I think you follow others, don't you? It's a bit like Twitter in that sense, just more visual. Yeah.
But it's an OU Instagram,
There.
Yeah.
A design school one. Yeah, design group one.
There's a design.
There you go. Max
design,
just shared
yeah.
it. What about more face-to-face things? What do people think about face-to-face options?
We can meet up in a shop or coffee shop, for example, one day, to let everybody knows and meet up, and that would be a possible idea.
So could I ask maybe a bit more of a bigger question? I mean, it's great to hear these ideas for, learning Photoshop and all this kind of stuff. I've spent 20 years as a designer having to learn software package after software package. Collectively at the Open University, we are probably connected to some of the biggest design companies and groups and organizations around the world. If there was a big thing, if there was an amazing thing that we could bring to you as students, or maybe organize as students, whether it's at the Design Museum or the V&A or the V&As round about the UK, if there was a big thing, a special thing that we could try to sort out, something that's a bit more than just learning Photoshop brushes. Has anybody got any ideas or thoughts on what that could be? Is there something that you could challenge us with?
I was just thinking that there are, moving forward from that also, is that couldn't we do it in a way that, I know we're doing this annual show and everything's on Twitter and Instagram, and we're showing what the students are capable of doing and they're learning, but does these handles or ways of communicating, students' work ever get pushed or shown towards prospective employers and other organizations? Is that the reason why we do this, or is it just there just for show?
my take. I don't know. So the annual show, for me, it is basically to show off the great work that everyone is doing, but which is publicly available. So you know, our work is really kind of shut away behind the firewall. You know, nobody can see what the OU is doing, and I think it is a great opportunity, you know, to show. You know, I'm part of the OU, and that's what I do. But it's also building a bit of community, and I think that's really really hard at the distance, isn't it? It's a lot about community building, and seeing, you know, what the work is like that's coming up, you know, or maybe making new friends and partners, like, you know, Cindy and Tommy kind of, oh, we should get talking, you know.
Yeah, that's what happened between me and Tommy, and we were having a discussion about that, actually, the fact that we had a very long conversation one evening, and it was about, part of it was to do with the fact that we haven't had the opportunity, obviously because of COVID, to interact with other students and other, you know, other tutors. Not necessarily just to do with that, it's just general socializing and being able to exchange ideas in a face-to-face environment. And I think that's part of the reason this kind of past couple of years has been a little bit difficult, because it's all well and good, like I said previously, talking about showing and doing our work on ODS, but being able to sit down in day schools and, you know, and have chats and, you know, talk through ideas and TMAs and things like that, all interactively together, I think that would make a big difference. And that's where the learning to work with others would become easier, because I just think at the moment people are doing that because we're not socializing in the same way. So if there's any opportunity to do any group work, I think most people would shy away from it, because how would you do that?
I think we have done it in U101. It's a creative session we created with other students, and we discussed our problems, design problems, and we identified problems in designs, and we created a creative session with students, and that's a nice way. I find it very interesting way to communicate with other students and get the ideas. But they didn't actually come to a session, like face-to-face session. It's all done in the, you know, typing and just giving the ideas in the module section. So
yeah, because U101 is excellent for that. I loved U101 because of that reason. But I'm just talking from my point of view, that when it came to this particular year, it was started off like that, and everyone was under the premise that it would be the same. It would be the same, but it wasn't. And I'm sure a lot of students probably dwindled, and as the workload increased, and, you know, the course is quite different, it just didn't have the same ring to it. So it wasn't utilized in the way that it should have been. And that's why I found that a bit sad, because I did enjoy, even though it wasn't face-to-face, that there was that anticipation and excitement, to be honest with you, that you shared your work and someone has something positive to say about it.
Andrew, do you want to come in?
Hi, I was thinking it's like that in the third level as well, because I've just done 317, and it's exactly the same with Open Design Studio. And I think I posted about 3 times because the workload and the lack of communication I had on it. And that's my experience of OU. So I feel like if it was an app, I think I'd discussed it with everybody about it being an app. So you can upload them quickly and efficiently and write things as you're sitting there or sitting in a cafe and stuff like that. So you'd have to pull out your computer to watch it. You can look at it on your phone, but it's not very practical, I don't think. But having that communication on an app would be great.
I agree with that.
Or with Instagram, having like your tutor hashtag, so you can hashtag all your work to one page with your tutor name or something like that, and then that would work as well as ODS, and then you can comment on that. Because and that WhatsApp as well, that people was on about. My wife did criminology and they had a WhatsApp and they was constantly discussing stuff on there, and I found it, and somebody tried to set a WhatsApp group up beginning of the year for 317, but didn't go anywhere. It's just like, but that would be interesting as well, using WhatsApp, because you can post pictures on there and everything. So yeah, that's my take on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of agree with you on that, Andrew. I think there must be an easy way to facilitate the workings of ODS, but in a more user-friendly manner, quickly, and that everyone is able to use on like their phones. Because when you try to use ODS on your mobile phone, it's quite small and difficult to maneuver and write on. There can be maybe an easier way to do so, and then everyone would probably be more likely to use it, because everyone, if it resembles some kind of social media, it'd probably be more user friendly.
Yeah, I agree.
Varsha, you've got your hands up.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to say, U101 is my first module that I've done with the OU. And I think the communication that I have experienced, it's been a mixed bag. I think the ODS system was fantastic because we were able to share our work, and people would communicate really well, give their feedback, share ideas, and just looking at each other's work, I think was really inspirational. And when I would log on to do my studying, that would be the first thing I would do, would go into ODS and see what everyone else is doing. And it kind of, I don't know, it's a great community, I think. And I haven't studied before this, so I haven't got anything to compare. But I also feel as well that everything seems to be very online nowadays, and that's just the way the world is at the moment. It's just going that way. And I think I would have missed having that face-to-face interaction if it was possible to have done so. But I think there are ways to work around. For example, my group tutor offered to do a meetup within our tutor group to some kind of an art exhibition in a central location to try and, make it easy for people to get to. But I think it's about the individual. Some people want to have that interaction, but some people don't. So if you're in a tutor group where a lot of people are quite happy to plod along and, work along at their own pace without interacting, then you've got a very small number of people who, are kind of clustered together and work together more. So it's all about the individual, really. But I think, however, any kind of like studying and what have you, it's what you make of it. So yeah, there are definitely opportunities out there to reach out and make friends and interact in all these different ways, as you said, Instagram or WhatsApp groups and that. And I think, as Sharmini said, we had a couple of Zoom sessions for brainstorming
That's right, yeah.
for some of the TMAs. And for the ones that I joined, and I found them really beneficial. They worked very well. And we all came away with things that we could work with to put towards our, towards the assessment. So yeah, I guess it's just what you make of it, but there's so many options out there. But I, personally, I am a face-to-face person. I prefer that any day over doing everything online. I think it's really lovely to be able to see people. So again, Sharmini, I think it's lovely if you, as you suggested, if people can meet for a coffee, or if you're local, you can go out for a walk together, and, just having that little, relationship with fellow students. I think it's a great value.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great value to our
definitely.
work. Actually, when I created a creative session, only one or two person in my group communicated and gave the ideas. So
yeah,
it's some people doesn't like to, or doesn't like to come, or they are not up to date in that point. Some people miss out. So it's a bit of but I try to manage.
What you're saying. Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. It's difficult, especially if you are meant to be doing group work and then you haven't got that presence. It makes it difficult for you to do your work. But I think it's lovely to be able to interact with fellow students. I've learned so much on U101. I mean, I've there's, it's just, I've learned so much, not only about design, but just like by interacting with other people. It's like really
That's
how we
true.
develop.
Yeah, I agree with you. I enjoyed the creative session and working with other people, but
Yeah.
not many people involved in that sessions. That's what I found it like really, I mean, just disappointed,
Oh, it's a shame we went on the same group, Shamini.
Well, that's exactly the thing I was just thinking about. Couldn't it be that we group people according to what their expectations are, what the way they would like to work? Because it is fair enough that some people just cannot, engage in group work much for whatever reasons. There are good, valid reasons for that. So I do think there needs to be, from the OU, maybe a better way to facilitate those who would like to work more together.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
We divided groups, and it's kind of that to get to know each other as well. Once a month we meet up and discuss our design problems. So that should be a really great idea, is meet up and get, because online, not many people involved in that online sessions, creative sessions, not many, only 1 or 2 in my group has involved in my.
Do you think it's should be student-led, student organized, or is this something that should be tutor or OU organized? How would that work best?
The tutor organized it would be the best option. So everybody will involve if the tutors organize these groups. So.
But it's not led by the tutor, it's for students to speak, right? So the tutor is not guiding, it's not like a tutorial, right? It's more like a,
It's like an informal chat. It's almost like an informal chat or get together or discussion, or I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be run by the university, but on the other hand, knowing that the university is involved would be handy, just to have some regulation and order, so of what's going on. I think that's quite good. But at the same time, if it was like overseen by them, but then it was student led, I think a combination of both would be quite I think that could work.
Yeah, I think again, we did have groups. We had tutor group sessions online. I think every single tutor group would have online sessions for each part of the module. So again, I think the service was given, but I think not a lot of people might choose to take part. So I think then that does impact on the actual session itself, because if you've only got 2 or 3 people, when the tutor group is 20 people, for example, it's not going to give you the same productive output. Okay, whoever attends it is going to benefit from it, but I think when you've got a little bit of a larger group of people who want to be involved and share ideas, I mean, that's just my personal opinion, and there's also there were social forums as well, I think, set up. There's a cafe, so people can put posts on there, and it doesn't have to be relating to the work itself. It could be just anything, and people could just put messages on there and give feedback to each other, and so there was that social aspect of it as well. But I think the sessions, if I just go back to what I was saying with Shamini, the brainstorming sessions, they were the ones that I took part in 2, and they were organized by the students. I organized 2 of them. One of them was by Zoom and one was with Teams. But I posted it on the whole of the module wide forum. So it wasn't just my tutor group. I put it on the U101 forum so that anyone could attend. It wasn't just restricted to my tutor group. So yeah, I mean, the possibilities are there. So it's just up to people to take part and get as much as involved as they want to be. And yeah, I think whoever does want to get involved, you take away and you benefit from it, really. If that's for you. If it isn't for you, then that's also fine, because everybody, is different and they have different choices and likes, don't they? Yeah.
Do you think that, just putting it out there, just a thought, do you think the fact that the courses, the OU in general, is distance learning, why there's less people likely to want to meet up and do things collectively? If that makes sense, then if you're in a brick uni and you can constantly seeing people all together, it's more likely that group would be formed. So the fact that we do most of our works in singular form anyway, that the likelihood of wanting to go take that extra step and go out and do something like that is less likely, if that makes any sense what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. I think you've got a point there, but I don't really know that the fact that the OU is an online organisation impacts on it. There's the opportunity's always been there, but I think definitely COVID has impacted on it, because for more than 2 years, people couldn't do anything if they wanted to.
Got comfortable not doing it.
And people have been affected in so many different ways. You know, that I think that's probably had a really massive impact on it. So now that people are sort of meeting face to face, whether it be for studying or work or for social things, there's still that, you know, there's still that thing in, you know, you've still got COVID hanging in the background, haven't you? And you've still got to be careful. And maybe that's, you know, deterring people from being more involved. I don't know, but that's just what I think.
I have to wrap up because we diminished our audience substantially. But I thought it was such an amazing conversation. Thank you so much, Cindy, for guiding us with the questions you had and all the other responses. These were amazing. Thank you so much. Maybe if you just need more of those things. Just regular drop-in sessions, talk, and share and
do this. That's another thing, because we did that. Do you remember how I met a few of you was during that student consultation? It was just when I just rolled in there thinking I was tried to sneak in and I got caught out. But that's another story. But things like that, I'm opening up not just for specific students, but opening up wide to like design students in general, that they can turn around and give ideas.
Usually do. It's quite hard. Anyway, we got to come to a close because loads of people have to leave, and I want to thank everyone who took part in the exhibition, making it such a great thing. Once again, thank you so much. It's Max for the website with Christian together. Thank you so much for engaging and building this website for us. Thank you. And also Adela and Alessandra to work really hard on the catalogue. And last but definitely not least, Tommy and Cindy for doing such an amazing social media campaign together with Adela, and guiding us also partly through the evening. Thank you. Thanks everyone.
It was great.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Lovely to see you all.
Thank you, and have a lovely evening, everyone.
You too.
Take care.